Hey everybody, so this is going to be our next podcast. We're going to be doing masterminds this time. We're going to be doing 5 from 2 different categories. The first category is going to be the category of our favorite masterminds to play against. It's not particularly the most difficult ones, but just the ones that we enjoy the most. And then our second category is going to be the top 5 most difficult masterminds that we play against.
Yeah, so with the difficult masterminds, we were a little bit more specific. Like, we actually had criteria we wanted to go into for deciding masterminds, and because they can be so complex, we decided to give 5 main criteria to decide who is, among the masterminds, the most difficult to play in this game. So the first of the criteria is, does the Master Strike prevent you from using non-gray heroes? Always a pain if that happens in any game. Number 2, does the Master Strike of the Mastermind remove a large number of cards or mechanisms from the game? And by mechanisms, think like removing heroes entirely from the HQ or removing parts of the hero deck. Number 3, does the Mastermind always lead a villain group that can simulate these same effects to a degree? Meaning they don't necessarily have to copy it, but they at least need to be able to mimic it, or at least not benefit any particular player. Example, no deck thinners like Carnage's Feast ability can be allowed in this. I always think of Carnage's ability as kind of a scapegoat because it gets rid of my zero cost cards. Number 4, can the Mastermind also win outside of the standard rules, such as schemes or running out of heroes? Perfect example, Galactus destroying the entire city. Hint for the upcoming list. And number 5, when fighting the Mastermind, do his tactic cards or her tactic cards benefit the player? If yes, then this Mastermind should not be considered difficult at all. With that being said, let's get into it.
All right, let's do it. So before we actually do get into the masterminds, I wanted to ask you, what have you been playing lately?
Me in particular?
Yeah, what have you been playing lately? Have you played any good games?
I've actually kind of been going on a Spider-Man or Paint the Town Red spree lately.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I find myself coming back to the masterminds and the schemes out of that deck, like the Invade the Daily Bugle or the Invade the Daily HQ. It's probably one of my most favorite schemes. And Carnage, I know how much I just dissed him as being a mastermind, but it's actually pretty easy with Carnage because he is a mastermind that works well for my wife, who's not quite as advanced as a player as we are, Zach. So,
yeah, or at least unwilling to be it.
Yep. And if anybody's also checked out one of the latest episodes on our on our YouTube channel, I am trying to recreate some scenarios from the Savage Avengers. I'm working on the next one being the other half of the Savage Avengers team, which is going to include Venom. Conan is in Savage Avengers, but I don't have Conan as a hero, so I am going to put in another substitute of some sorts that gets me at least close to that.
Okay.
And then Conan in Savage Avengers does partner up with Doctor Strange. So
okay. Cool. Yeah, and see, I have the new set that we discussed. I have the New Mutants now, and so that's the set that I've been starting to focus on and play with that. So I told you previously though that I ordered, because I was getting desperate in terms of sleeves. I'm out of sleeves. I decided to order a pack from a local game store, and they sent me the wrong size on accident, and so I was stuck without the 100 sleeves that you need to actually play the set. So what I did was instead is I took all of my additional player stuff, like all my extra shield troopers and shield agents, and I unsleeved all of those. I unsleeved all my horrors. I unsleeved all my just extra stuff, and then I had almost 105 sleeves there.
I did the exact same thing when I got the Thor expansion pack.
Yeah.
Because right when we got it was right when the stay-at-home orders and the lockdown started happening, and I guess in terms of essential businesses, gaming companies don't fall under that criteria, which is fair. But
what's more essential right now than having something to do to stay sane at home, right?
Hence the podcast.
But yeah, so hopefully in the next couple of days I'm gonna play a few more games with the New Mutant stuff. So I really like the new keywords in there as well, because one of the keywords in there it's like I believe it's moon, or I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it allows you to gain abilities based on whether there are odd or even numbers in the HQ, whatever's most in the HQ. Okay. So like for
Probably.
example, if it's odd, then you'll gain one set of abilities. Like if there are 3 out of the 5 heroes that are odd, then you gain one ability. But if it's even, you gain the ability of the other one. Now, if you play a card though that has both of those on it, like I think it's Moon and Sun, then what happens is the Moon ability can manipulate the actual area and the HQ, and let's say that will then turn it into a Sun ability. It will turn it into like the Sun majority, and then you can use the Sun ability on the card as well.
That's really cool. I
It's
mean,
it's a neat mechanic. I'm really excited to give it a shot.
I'm really excited to try it out when we can finally come face to face to play
Yes.
this again.
Yes, that would be nice. That'd be nice. All right, so let's go ahead and get started then with our actual count of our favorite masterminds. So
Yeah,
I have six. I believe you have six as well, right?
yeah. I like that.
It's
You don't
tough.
like to call it as the honorable mention, but I will, just because I couldn't narrow it down to five, and I think you're in the same boat as me.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat exactly. So my number six is going to be General Thunderbolt Ross from World War Hulk.
Why? Please tell.
So I really like this mastermind just because of the fact that it's one of those masterminds that introduces a new keyword of transform. And so the mastermind itself is a dynamic part of the game that is constantly changing throughout the game depending on what master strike is coming up. And when you attack him each time, General Ross then transforms, and you have to do cross-dimensional Hulk Rampage, which means if you don't have a Hulk card in either your hand or your discard pile, you gain a wound. And then on his opposite side, he has Wounded Fury, which means that for each wound that is in your discard pile or in your hand, he gets +1 attack. And it's pretty cool because General Thunderbolt Ross, in his actual like start of game mechanic, he has 8 bystanders that are put next to him as helicopter villains, and these ones are like 2 attack helicopter villains. You have to take all of those out before you can actually attack the Thunderbolt Ross side of his mastermind.
Oof,
The
that just
issue
sounds
is
painful.
when a Master Strike comes up, when you flip it over to the Red Hulk side, you can't fight the helicopters, but you can fight Red
Really?
Hulk. So
Okay.
you're
Okay.
stuck not being able to fight the actual helicopters, but you still are able to fight the Mastermind. But he has Wounded Fury, so he could be 15, 16, 17 potentially, depending on how many wounds you've gained so far. And then his tactic cards are really cool as well because I like a lot of them. A lot of them are advantageous to the player as well. And I like that some of them are like, for example, one of them says put 3 bystanders with a bystander stack next to the mastermind as helicopters. So there again, it stalls you out a little bit more. Then another one, you put a random bystander next to the mastermind as a helicopter from each of these places, like the bystander stack, the escape pile, and basically every place that a bystander could be. Okay, so it's really fun. I really enjoy that mastermind a lot.
So I think I have, in summary, one reason why you really like this mastermind, and why he's your number six and the favorite, and why you couldn't decide just down to five. You had to include him.
Uh-huh.
You want to know what that reason is?
Sure.
You like to lose. That just sounds like you're always going to lose. And I know you won't always lose, but that sounds just incredibly painful, but challenging. I will agree. I will give you that.
Believe it or not, I've never lost to Thunderbolt Ross.
Really
Really.
interesting.
You just gotta
All
up the
right,
game, man. Just gotta up the game.
fair enough. Respect, respect. All right. Well, if we're going on the number six honorable mentions for favorite heroes or favorite masterminds, I am going to include Hela as my favorite mastermind, and she's my honorable mention or number six of this, just because I haven't played enough of her to truly get to appreciate her yet. However, the few times I have played, she's fun.
She's really fun. I love villainous
She's
weapons.
fun. Villainous weapons, I think, is probably the main reason that she gets thrown out there,
Yeah.
as well as the fact that she has 2 conquering spaces that give her 5 more attack. You have to be very, very mindful of what's in the city in order to fight her.
Yeah. And then the wolf that she has that charges through 3 spaces, that thing, I hate that thing. But I love her villain group.
I just find anything that has the charge ability to just be a nuisance. I like it, but a nuisance.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the coolest things about Hela is the fact that within her villain group, she has Searcher and the Eternal Flame.
Yeah, which I'm not gonna lie, I thought he would have been a standalone mastermind. I'm fine that he's a villain, but I would have expected him to be a standalone mastermind just because of the sheer power he is as a
Yeah,
character in the Marvel
I,
universe.
I definitely saw him as more of a secondary villain, just because of like the fact that within the current context of Marvel, you could say he's much more of like a tertiary character versus like one of those primary masterminds that you might have encountered, like in the MCU specifically. And the two masterminds that they picked not only had comic relevance, but they also had MCU relevance.
When you put it that way, I agree. That makes sense. Both Malekith and Hela carry a lot of weight in both the comic universe
Yeah.
and the MCU. I was just thinking for Searcher out of the comic universe, he carries equal, if not more, weight than Malekith, I guess, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
that might be just opinion based. So
Yeah, because Malekith did
I
have a
digress.
pretty big run in terms of like the Lady Thor stuff as well. So, like Mighty Thor.
Correct.
So, all right. So my number five, getting into our actual top five in terms of our favorite masterminds, is going to be one from Revelations. This one may surprise you, actually. It's going to be Grim Reaper.
I'm going to say I am surprised. I personally like. I don't hate Grim Reaper. To me, he's just a mastermind I don't think of. But I'm
Okay.
sure you have your reasons.
Yeah, the reason that I like him is because all of his tactics really embrace the new mechanic that was brought in with Revelations of locations, and I really like the location mechanic. That's one of the big
I can
reasons
say
that I
that.
like him. And then also the fact that he feels almost like a Mysterio esque character in that you have to take him out, but then you have to fight his tactics a second time when they're in the city. Otherwise, the tactics give secondary benefits to all the villains that are in those city spaces. Like, for example, whenever you fight a villain in one of them, each other player KOs a bystander from the victory pile. Or whenever you fight a villain here, each other player gains a wound. Third one would be whenever you fight a villain here, each other player puts a villain from the victory pile in the escape pile. And so each of these do not specifically affect the player that's attacking, but instead they affect everyone else within the game. So it's kind of cool.
That's I can see your point now with the location. The location mechanic itself is really cool. And Grim Reaper does embody that mechanic, so I can see why you would really enjoy him.
Yeah. Same thing with his villain group too. I mean, almost all of them. I mean, each one is divided between a character that boosts gets a boost if their location is in the city, and then four other locations as well. So it's pretty cool. I really like that one a lot.
Nice. Well, my number fifth or number five
Number fifth.
favorite master. Number fifth. I might want to be as official as possible here.
Exactly.
My number five favorite mastermind is actually a lot of listeners are going to find this as kind of simple and pretty, I guess, not very exciting
Okay.
as a mastermind goes. But hear me out. Doctor Doom. I really like Doctor Doom. He was my favorite because he was my favorite mastermind out of the original box set.
Mm-hmm.
I found his Master Strike more irritating than Loki, who is one attack point higher,
Okay.
because he doesn't force you to discard two cards. He forces you to put two cards back on top of your deck.
Yeah.
Which, if you have a bad hand, you are discarding two or putting two cards on top of your deck, setting yourself up for another bad hand.
Yep.
So it can be more painful. But having said that, like, he was a challenge in the starter set, as we progressed and gotten other small boxes and other expansions, he is not as challenging, but I still think he is one of the better introductory masterminds, and that's really why he's in my favorite mastermind category. Especially with all this going on right now, I can't go anywhere, and I can't have a lot of other friends play Marvel with me at the moment. I usually have to go to my wife, and
well, you just had someone move in now, so you're good.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, and honestly, in my opinion, from the base set, I think my favorite mastermind was probably just Red Skull, just because I really like the Captain America, Winter Soldier, Red Skull, all of those storylines. That's my thing. That's a personal favorite from there.
And I'm in the same boat, but with Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
If the next main arc mastermind villain for the MCU is Doctor Doom, I will be so excited. I will take him over Galactus. I will take him over Apocalypse. I will take him over anyone, because Doctor Doom is one of the greatest.
Yeah. I don't see it happening this early, though. Maybe next phase I could see it happening, but I just think it's a little bit too early with like Disney's acquisition of Fantastic Four.
Correct. I
Yeah.
agree. So we'll see,
Yep.
but I can always hope, right?
Yeah, yeah, you can hope. You can hope. And so my next one is going to be one that I specifically bought a box set for, a big box set for it. Well, this is the primary reason that I bought that box set, and I think you can guess what it is.
Uh,
Big box. I primarily bought it for one Mastermind. Which box is it?
oh, I'm gonna say it is Iron Man from Civil War.
Exactly. Authoritarian Iron Man. There's nothing better than pulling out Authoritarian Iron Man from the box and just playing through the Civil War storyline. Just like it's such a good game to be able to play. And his Master Strike's really fun as well. The fact that he fortifies a city space to the right of him and you can't fight him until that space is clear can really get out of hand really quickly. I actually liked the way that we played it as well, where we made him fortify each city space next to him, and so all the way down, kind of like a Galactus type thing where he goes through all of the city spaces instead of it just being one. So in order to fight him after like the fifth Master Strike, you have to have the entire city clear. So that one is extremely difficult, but it's a lot more fun that way. And I like that within his actual tactics as well, there are quite a few beneficial ones for players that do take the opportunity to actually attack him. Like, for example, the player who attacks them, every other player around him has to reveal their hand and discard all their recruit icons, which sets them a turn back potentially. And then another one is you get +6 recruit to use against use for range or tech heroes, which is awesome because you almost always have some form of range hero in a game, at least when we play. And then, for another one is the villain with the highest printed attack in the escape pile enters the city space that Authoritarian Iron Man is fortifying, so you get another chance to be able to take him out. So again, this is just a really cool thematic one that you can play a lot of fun games with in terms of like the storyline as well. I also love the fact that he introduces that keyword of fortify, because fortify is a really fun keyword that really makes you think twice about whether or not you're going to risk a villain escaping the city. Because you could have it fortify the hero deck, you could have it fortify your deck with Iron Spider or the bystanders, or even if you're playing against the Shield Elite, you can have it fortify the actual Shield Officer stack.
Easy, Zach. You're going into a lot of positive notes here on the Civil War box, and I can't allow that.
It's an okay box. It's just not as good as the other ones.
Okay. Correct. I'm just still going to make the claim that Authoritarian Iron Man and Maria Hill are the only good things to come out of that box, but
Well, I would argue differently, but we can continue.
we can continue. But no, Authoritarian Iron Man, I will concede, is a excellent choice for favorite masterminds. I am going to, for my fourth, it's actually going to be, it's funny considering I was just talking about Painted Town Red, Mysterio.
Really, Mysterio's that low for you? That's surprising.
Not because, I mean, not really like all of my favorite masterminds. You could almost make an argument that they're like all my favorites as number ones, but no, Mysterio,
They're all my
put
children.
him below the other ones. They're all my children. But no, I put him below my next three because I didn't even put him below. He's in my favorites because he is just thematically perfect. Upper Deck made his Master Strikes fit the theme of, they turn into illusions and make his tactic pile even larger, and then you're still fighting him and wasting time, and oh my goodness, we're running out of the heroes in the villain deck. It fits perfectly. So Mysterio, top 5 favorite masterminds. Yep. Number 4, yes, but there are reasons for the other ones, but still, solid mastermind.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I personally really like Mysterio a lot. And so any game that I have Mysterio in, it's always a fun game. So my number 3 is going to be the Mandarin from Revelations.
Ooh, okay.
I really like the Mandarin a lot. One thing I like about him is the fact that, number one, he leads an actual henchman group instead of a villain group, so it gives you more flexibility within the game to pick a different villain group that you want to play, so it makes it thematically more interesting. And
I can see that.
And he also has those Mandarin rings as his henchman group, and each one of those Mandarin rings is different and they're unique, and they have a different ability that you fight against. Okay, so different fight effect, I should say.
If we were doing an episode on favorite henchman group, Mandarin rings would end up in there for sure.
Oh, definitely. So I also really like that he has an epic side in terms of the mastermind. You know what I was thinking about we should do sometime? We should create a series called the Epic Gauntlet. Okay?
Why does that not sound fun
It sounds
at all?
incredibly fun. So what we could do is we could take all of the epic masterminds and put them into like a, I guess you could say a giant lotto, ball draw thing, and then we can draw one out and play a game against that epic mastermind and remove it each time. And so each time we would have a different epic mastermind we would play against. It could be awesome.
Okay, that sounds better than what you were leading with when it came to Gauntlet. I thought you were going to do like a Secret Wars scenario where it's just like you keep fighting masterminds
Yeah, like
until you're done.
you mean like a Planet Hulk type thing where they have all of the drained masterminds to the side, but they're all epic.
Yeah,
Could you imagine
yeah,
like
that.
having three epic masterminds to the side and then having your main mastermind be epic as well? I'm pretty sure the game would end in like 4 turns.
Yeah, I like to win my games, Zach, so let's
I
not do that.
I kind of want to try that now, just for the sake of it. This may have to
Well, you do
happen.
a solo game. You do a solo game all by yourself on that, and let me know how it
This may
goes.
have to happen. Like I'm gonna do Onslaught epic and Dark Phoenix epic, and I'll do Apocalypse epic. No, he doesn't have epic. Does he?
No, he doesn't have
No,
one.
he doesn't have
No,
epic.
he does
No,
not have an epic.
it was too. It
Do
was too
Ultron.
early. Dark
Do
City does.
Ultron epic.
Ultron epic, and then I can do my main mastermind as the Mandarin. Oh my gosh. Ugh. Okay. All right. So, anyways, I really like him, like I was saying, and I like his tactics as well. Like they have draw a card for each Mandarin ring in your victory pile, so that's a positive for you. Then there are ones that affect other players as well, not as much the individual player, but it also has a location for one of its card. And so, whenever you fight a villain in that location after you have fought that tactic, each other player reveals their hand and KOs one of their non-gray heroes. So, if you're playing a more competitive game versus a cooperative game, that's really going to hammer the other players around you.
Nice. All things I agree with you on, which is probably also why my number 3 is also the Mandarin.
Is it really?
So it is.
You let me talk that whole time, and your number 3 was the same exact thing. Okay.
You were covering all the bases, man. I wasn't going to disagree with you at all. So,
well, that's great. Is there anything else you would add to it?
I mean, no, you and I are on the same boat right now. So everything's great. Everything's perfect. Mandarin's number 3. He's awesome. You hit the henchman group. I literally have nothing else to add. I just actually I'm curious to see that you have 2 masterminds from the Revelations set in your favorite.
Yeah, I do. I really like that set. It's a great small box or medium box. It had so many good things in it.
Is it a small box? Is it a medium box? Is it a large box?
It's a medium. It's a medium box. So because it had 200 cards versus 100 versus 300 to 400 cards. So, all right. So then I guess I'll let you go ahead and do your number 2 then, since I talked so much.
Okay. So we'll go on to number 2 then, and my number 2 is Ultron.
Ooh, I do like Ultron. I do like that one. It's fun.
Ultron is, well, one, if we're speaking from an MCU perspective, Ultron, Age of Ultron I did not think, as bad of a villain as everyone thought. I really liked the second Avengers. I really liked Ultron. I thought he did a great job. He is an evil version of Tony Stark, yes, but still comically evil and hilarious.
Yeah.
From the game perspective, his whole embrace of the threat analysis pile to use Empower and get stronger based on what's in the HQ.
Yep.
It's an ability that doesn't it's an ability that can be beaten, but you have to strategize with it. And I think that's the part I like. It's not an overly powered, challenging ability so long as you are aware of what's happening in the game. And I like that. Like, those are the challenges I enjoy, and those are the challenges that are fun. I have yet to play the epic side again. Since our
it scarred you too much the first time?
Well, it was what was it? Our first small box set where we would then realize, oh my gosh, there are epic sides to this, and then in our ignorance, we're like, oh hey, we'll try the epic side of Ultron. That's gonna work. That was probably one of the most horribly lost games of our lives.
I'm pretty sure though that it is the first small box that had an epic side. I know that some of the big boxes had, like X-Men had epic sides, but I don't believe a small box had it besides that one.
You are correct. No, it is the first small box that had epic sides, and it's the small box that I think took the epic side with Ultron and was like, oh, epic? I can show you what epic is, and then just wrecked it. Because his threat analysis on the normal side is he just gets 1 attack. But the threat analysis on the epic side is he gets 3 more attack for each one, and that's just too much.
Yeah.
But no,
triple
number
empowered.
2. What was that?
I said triple empowered.
Triple empowered, too much, and it's just, but still fun, all around good mastermind. Really embraces the empowered keyword from the Ant-Man set, which is one of my favorite keywords, which is why I put that set so high. So Ultron, number 2.
Yeah. So my number 2 is not Ultron, but even though Ultron is great, I do really enjoy his games. My number 2 is going to be Mysterio.
So now we know why you were so outraged that I had Mysterio so low.
Well, I was just surprised too, as well, because I know that Painted Town Red set is one of your favorites, and you're always continuously going back to those to be able to play games. But Mysterio, to me, is one of those masterminds that no matter what scheme I pick, no matter what villain groups I set up with, I always have a good time when he is the mastermind in the game. I think it's because his actual attack points are low enough that they're manageable, and you feel like you're doing something even though he does have more tactics, because it's only 8 attack. So you could potentially hit him 2-3 times in a turn, but you're just not making that big of a dent. So it's satisfying in that way.
It's all an illusion. It's an illusion, your success.
Exactly. And I really like the twist on like the apocalypse tactic, where like if it's not the final tactic, you have to shuffle in the Master Strike tactics back into his pile. That can be rough if you're playing a bigger game, if you have like 3 or 4 people playing at one time, because if each of you have one of those Master Strike tactics, you have to shuffle them all back into there, and then suddenly it's a brand new game.
I mean, you and I have had discussions before on the optimal number of players for a Marvel game, and I'm pretty sure we're set on that number 3 is the best number of people. And Mysterio would be a perfect example of if you have 4, now you're not having fun.
Yeah, it gets really tough at that point, just because, I mean, everyone is having a difficult time recruiting. You have multiple people picking over the course of specific heroes that everyone wants.
Right. No, I agree.
Yeah.
But I can see why you have Mysterio as your number 2.
Okay. So my number 1 is a recent mastermind. It came out just last year, and it has a game mechanic that I absolutely love, and I really hope they continue with this mechanic into new sets and they use it later on, because having the ability to adapt masterminds is really fun. So my number 1 is the Hydra Super Adaptoid.
All right, now before you go ahead and start rambling on about Hydra Adaptoid, let me say this. He's also my number 1, so.
Okay, fair enough. I get it. So I'm pretty sure we have similar reasons, right? I love the fact that it's continuously changing. You're adapting that mastermind throughout the game. You're continuously shuffling through. But I also love the theme that he is based on like those Avengers heroes as well. And the Master Strikes within that are also based on the actual heroes in the game. So, like, for example, like Black Widow, when you fight it, for each of your covert heroes, you get to rescue a bystander, as Black Widow would do. Right?
And then there's also a Thor one. There's also a Iron Man one. There's also Captain America. Yes. Though the fact that it kind of takes a piece from each of the Avengers heroes to build off of and makes himself better and adapts with it is pretty cool. And I did not realize that until I was like in the middle of a game, and he just adapted and changed, and I just flipped over the new mastermind. I was like, wait, what's going on?
I'm in over my head as you're shuffling it up.
I was both angry and happy at the same time.
Yeah. See, the only thing about this that I wish they could have figured out a way to do it, it would have been really tough to do this just because of the fact that you could see the names, is I wish they would have done like an epic version of these as well. Think about how cool that would be. If the opposite side of the card would have been epic versions of Black Widow, Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man, that'd have been really fun.
That would have been cool. My request would have been that they added a 5th. I understand why they dropped it down to 4 because
that's true.
The standard is that you should only have to beat the 4 mastermind tactics, and then you and I just always like to go the extra mile and hit that mastermind for a 5th time because it's just so satisfying.
It is.
But from a adapt a mastermind that adapts perspective, I would have liked a fifth just to have that as an option. If you could have had that as an expansion rule where it's like, if you really want to challenge, add this fifth one in here and see what happens. That would have been made it much, much better. But because of disregarding that, still top 5, still my number 1 favorite mastermind.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I know why you're a little bit salty about them not having a fifth card. And I don't think it's because the fifth card is missing. I think it's because what fifth card is missing? Is it because they didn't put your little Hawkeye in there? Is that what's wrong?
Sorry. I'm not going to acknowledge your insults because Hawkeye is the greatest Avenger on the whole team.
He is the greatest Avenger. He's the greatest Avenger that has a bow and no powers. I'll give you that.
Which, we're not getting into this right now. It is a Marvel Legendary podcast, not a Who's the Greatest Avengers podcast, even though the obvious answer is Hawkeye.
Yeah. It's definitely Hawkeye. I'm sure everyone says that. Anyways, on to our actual ranking for the top 5 most difficult masterminds in our opinion. Now, these 5 are 5 that Fitz and I agreed upon in terms of the masterminds that we believe are both difficult based on the criteria that Fitz had previously expressed in the beginning. But we also both had an honorable mention that we had that we didn't quite fit into the top 5, but we both individually thought was worthy of mentioning. So you can go ahead and tell me what yours is.
Yes, thank you, Zach. And it's worthy of mentioning just because they almost fit the criteria we laid out, but just barely missed it. However, the reason they're still worthy to be mentioned is because they bring forth something to the table that is unique compared to other masterminds that provides its own challenge. So for my honorable mention, I went with King Hyperion from Secret Wars Volume 2.
Hate that guy.
And for those, we all do. I personally think we all do. Those of you who have played Secret Wars Volume 2 will know that King Hyperion, he is that mastermind that likes to get his hands dirty, if you will, and actually go into the city himself. And not only does he go into the city when a Master Strike appears, he charges 3 spaces. So if your city is a little overcrowded, congratulations, your city just got cleaned up a little bit, and not in a good way.
There are rooms for rent now.
Exactly. Now, keep in mind too, the reason I think the reason he didn't meet the top 5 for most difficult villains is because he didn't meet that criteria where his mastermind tactics, when you hit him, they do benefit the player. They like you get either a lot of bystanders or recruit points, things like that. He does tend to keep his mastermind tactic pile pretty full because if you hit him while he's in the city, he just kind of goes back to the top and everything. But that charge when he comes into the city can just wreck any strategy you had going. Oh, I hope you didn't want to buy that card that was in the HQ. Now you have to get rid of 3 of them. Yeah. Oh, I hope you didn't want all of these wounds. Enjoy, because all of the escape effects just happen for these 3 heroes.
Yeah, and I personally, the thing that really pushes me with that one is just the charge ability in and of itself. I don't know why, I'm just not a huge fan of charge, especially the thing that really pushed it for me is in the Hela set of villains, when you have Ferris, that wolf, and he charges 3 spaces into the city and pushes everything out as well. It just makes it so much more difficult.
I think you're just salty.
Sometimes. Yeah, that could be the case. So, all right. So my number 6 or my honorable mention is going to be Maria Hill, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I think I know your answer, and I can feel your pain, but please tell me more.
So, she is really difficult for me just for the fact that, number 1, her primary mechanic of putting S.H.I.E.L.D. officers into the city creates a clogging aspect to your deck that causes you to have game problems throughout the entire game, all the way until the end of the game. Even if you primarily use her as your recruit fuel with the S.H.I.E.L.D. officers that you're getting, and with the improvements to the S.H.I.E.L.D. officer deck, it's still difficult to draw the cards that you need in the game with the Maria Hill fueling with Muriel Hill continuously fueling the city. And so, I mean, she even has one tactic that says that. Let me see, where is it? Let's see. So you have to put a shield officer into every empty city space as a 3 attack villain.
I think the appropriate term you're looking for here is gumming the works.
Yeah, big time. Big time. And she has double shield clearance, which means in order to actually be able to fight her, you have to discard 2 shield cards from your hand. So you're cut down to 4 cards already. You have to be able to take out all of the shield cards that are in the city, whether it's shield officers or shield elite, before you can attack her. And then finally has 7 attack. You attack her. She has a tactic that comes up that puts more shield officers in the city, or 2 more enter the city as well. And it makes it so that it's a stalled game, but not in more like an enjoyable way via the like Mysterio version.
So, if she's so difficult, why did you not put forth a harder argument to put her in the top 5 most difficult?
Because the top 5 that we have, honestly, are more difficult, and I like them more. Honestly, I think our
Interesting.
choices for the top 5 are definitely the bosses of this game.
Okay.
But to be fair, I've
Gotcha.
never beaten Maria Hill either. But I'm gonna give it another shot.
All right. Well, I think we all wish you the best of luck with that.
All right, so let's go ahead and start with our number 5 then. So,
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I'm sure it's a surprise to some people, but our number 5 is going to be Thanos.
Now, for those of you who are familiar with Thanos, you may be wondering why he's our number 5, because it's Thanos. Come on. He should be higher, right? I mean, 24 attack. It's the guy that wiped the floor with the Avengers. It makes sense that he should be higher.
Yeah.
Well, be thankful that he's in the number 5. One of the reasons we put him as a number 5 is because we feel that if you play with the Infinity Gems, oh wait, you're always going to play with them because he always leads them, his attack gets reduced by 2. So it becomes a lot easier. Followed by his Bound Souls Master Strike ability. Yes, he does capture a non-gray hero and puts it in his Bound Souls, but there is a tactic in there where basically if you hit him and you get that one, you get to pick whichever one of those you want, making your deck even better. So it doesn't necessarily meet our criteria, but still very challenging.
Yeah, and the only reason that I would potentially put him higher is if we're discussing playing a solo game versus a 2-player game or a 3-player game. Because if you're playing a solo game, his tactics then are much more difficult for you, because what you would do to each other player is actually done to you individually. Like, for example, each other player reveals their hand and discards all cards that are the same name as a card in the Thanos Bound Soul pile, or each other player discards an Infinity Gem artifact. So you would be doing all those things to yourself instead.
True. But it should be mentioned, though, like that the criteria we have right now are we're assuming you're playing with 2 people.
Yeah.
Because
yeah. But just to be considering that solo can be something that is a little bit more difficult for him. So.
Well, then, since we're done with number 5, would you care to introduce our number 4, Zach?
Sure. Number 4 is going to be Galactus. Galactus is one of those masterminds that people talk about as one of the hardest masterminds in the entire game. I really like his cosmic threat keyword as well. The fact that you can pick one of, like, for each one of them, you can lower down his actual attack points. But it's only for one time, of course.
Which is why we probably put him higher above Thanos, because it's not a permanent reduction in attack.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that Galactus has a secondary win condition within the game, which causes you to have to think about one more thing while you're playing. The fact that his Master Strike is continuously eliminating spaces within the city, which is causing you to KO more cards from your actual hero pile, and also have more of those escape abilities, is something else that adds an extra twist to it as well.
It should be said, though, that yes, it does add an extra twist to it, and it is extremely frustrating when the city is smaller. But keep in mind, your hero deck is still intact, so you can still build a strategy around beating Galactus. You need to pick up the pace a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's putting pressure on you in the sense of time. The other reason that we put him as a number 4 and not higher is because his mastermind tactics, quite a few of them actually are a benefit. I think they're almost kind of... The upper deck was pretty much acknowledging, oh my goodness, you hit Galactus, here's a reward.
Yeah.
Like, you get to draw... Like, There's one tactic in there where you draw your 6 cards, and then you also draw an additional 6 cards. So you have 12 cards. Yes, you discard 6 of them. But with 12 cards, I think you better be picking out which ones are best and making an epic hand than discarding those 6. And those 6 are the bad ones that are already in your discard pile, meaning the next hand it's also going to be good.
Yeah. The only one that would be more troublesome for you, like in a game, is going to be the one that I think it's called Sunder the Earth. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's each other player KOs all heroes from their discard pile with the same card name as a hero in the HQ. So that's the only one that I believe in his stack that has a negative part for you.
Right, but then if we're statistically speaking, you have pretty good odds of being okay.
Yeah, of course, but you do have to make it through that one.
True.
So that's what makes it difficult. I mean, the fact that it has that secondary win condition, and then you have the difficult tactic in there, and then it's 20 attack as well. Plus, plus the villain group that he leads, all of them have really high attack.
Oh yeah, I think as far as villain group goes, the Heralds of Galactus are probably one of the more difficult. If we ever do a podcast on most difficult villain groups, I would put them up there because they are pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a single one that's below 10.
Yeah. All right, so then we have number 3. It is going to be one of our favorites.
It's funny.
It is the trolliest.
We put this as one of the most difficult based on our criteria, but it is probably one of our favorites. It didn't make it into the favorite masterminds just because I don't think we wanted to repeat, but 2, it deserved being known as a difficult mastermind, not a favorite mastermind.
Yeah, and it's going to be Apocalypse. And so Apocalypse is definitely one of the hardest villains in the game because just like Galactus, it has a Master Strike and a secondary win. A Master Strike that's really difficult because you have to take each of your non-gray heroes each of your heroes that cost 1 or more, and you put them on top of your deck, which then can set you back a turn, and then it just causes you to not be able to do anything specifically within that turn. And then there's also the secondary win condition that he has when famine, pestilence, war, and death have all escaped, then you lose as well.
Not just escaped; it's also just present.
I don't think so. Let me see. Let me look at the card. When famine, pestilence, war, and death have escaped.
Oh, okay. My mistake. I thought it was all present in the city.
Yeah, that would be way harder. That would be way harder. So
that would be much harder. But going either way, city or escaped, going off of that, his ability, I feel like, is catered specifically to that secondary win condition. Because if he's making you discard to all of your 1 or more heroes, the heroes you spent time and turns and effort in buying, you now are getting stalled out to allow another villain to be drawn, which could be a 4th horseman that then pushes the city and makes another horseman escape. It's just all a domino effect.
Yeah.
That just makes it just unending pain.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that the 4 horsemen are already a difficult villain group as well. He makes them stronger. He gives them additional attack points.
Yeah.
So you got to deal with that on top of everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing that makes it worse, though, is the fact that the cards aren't discarded. They're stacked back on top of the deck instead. And so that sets you back even further because you're not able to access those cards that are further down in your deck.
Correct. It goes off of my argument of why Dr. Doom is actually more difficult than other masterminds out of the standard set.
Yep, and of course you can't talk about Apocalypse without talking about like the trolliest tactic ever. The one that if it's not the final tactic, you get to rescue 6 bystanders, and then you shuffle it back in. We had games, honestly, where we've hit that tactic 5 times, I think, 5 or 6 times.
If you want to know an epic stall move, it is that. Yay, I got 6 free victory points. We're still playing, and oh look, there's 2 villains left in the victory pile. Well, I guess we're done now.
Yeah, right. Well, at least if there are 2 villains left in the victory pile, then I mean, you could at least just tie.
Oh, we all know that tying is just another way of saying you lost.
No, I'll take a tie against some of these ones.
All right. If you're looking at it from that point of view, sure.
All right, so our second one is going to be Dark Phoenix.
I only have one reason why this is number 2.
Okay.
Her Master Strike, eliminating an entire color from the hero deck Oh my god.
It's
there
awful.
there's no other mastermind that does this, and she just turns everything to ash, and your world is just burned to nothing, and your game is done. And I'm in a dark place right now. I'm just gonna stop.
Yep. Yeah. I think you should back up a little bit there. So I also like the fact that just like Galactus and just like Apocalypse, this has a secondary win condition. When the hero deck runs out, Dark Phoenix wins as well.
She is like not just as one of my favorite masterminds, but also one of my favorite heroes and villains. Like she could go back and forth. She's got a great character story, great arc. And then like when they brought her into the X-Men box, I think Upper Deck did her well.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
as a argument for putting her in hard number 2 place for hardest villains or masterminds, I could almost make an argument for number 1, but number 1 deserves this spot.
Oh, number one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
Dark Phoenix, though, she also leads a horrible, horrible villain group, which has a villain in there that ascends to a second mastermind. Which, if you're focused on Dark Phoenix, I don't want another second mastermind to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the tactics though for Dark Phoenix. Like for example, one of them is like you gain a hero from the the KO pile that costs 7 or more. More than likely, you're going to have at least one of them in there because you're eliminating entire hero classes from that.
True, true. I think it would be safe to say, like, even though we put her as the second hardest mastermind, you and I have never had a bad game with her. We always like
No, it's
playing
always
her.
fun. It's always a good time, yeah. Especially when you do Dark Phoenix, then you do the Dark Phoenix Saga, and you have Jean Grey in there as well, and it's just a fun game.
Oh, if we're doing theme in this whole game, that I think it's great.
Yeah,
They
yeah. I was gonna say thematically, I would probably put her number one. But I mean, in her, have you tried her epic side before?
no, because remember, Zach, I like to win.
Yeah, her epic side is so bad. It's the same thing where you KO the top card of the hero deck, and then like each card in the hero deck that shares the color is like KO'd as well. But then what happens is that each player has to play a Hellfire Club card from your victory pile, and then you have to play a random horror.
I don't even like understand why horrors were created.
Yeah.
I,
So that you can
I
play against Doctor Doom with a challenge.
I suppose the name of horror in and of itself explains why I dislike this.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so our number one, I'll let you tell that this one is, but this one to me is just one of those cards that just like grates on you when you play against it. It's so
So
difficult.
I'm glad you're letting me introduce the number 1, because the first thing I want to say is I've never had a fun game playing against the number 1 hardest mastermind in the Marvel Legendary set. Um, he is, or she, I guess, either or, is a challenge.
Pretty sure
Ruins
it's
your
a
game.
he.
Hmm?
I'm pretty sure it's a he.
Pretty sure it's a he. I mean, I didn't want to assume. He is a challenge. Ruins your game right off the get. Surprises you considering you look at him and he's only 10 attack points. You're like, oh, this could be worse. And then you realize, what have I done? It is Onslaught.
The thing about Onslaught too is that due to the fact that his primary thing that makes him the most difficult is that he makes your hand size one less at the start of the game, and so
I
every single turn you're only drawing 5 cards versus 6 cards. After a certain period of time, you're going to be entire hands behind in the game.
I never, and that's the thing. You look at that and you're thinking, oh, only 1 card. That's not a big deal. I still have 5 more to work with. And then you realize that's like having 6 cards in your hand is the entire point of the game.
Yeah,
Like
it makes a big difference in terms of the amount of productivity in the game.
it
So
makes a huge difference.
yeah. There is one way to be able to make Onslaught easier, and it's to make sure that you don't have any X-Men heroes in the game. But I mean, honestly though, if you're gonna play against Onslaught, you gotta have the X-Men heroes. You just have to.
I mean, you have to. If you're doing thematics, you have to have X-Men heroes to go against Onslaught. But of course, for our listeners, if you want to have no X-Men heroes to improve your chances, go for it. We approve, because then you might actually have fun against him.
You might have a shot.
Yep. Keep in mind, though, his dominate ability is horrible as well.
Yeah.
Oh, did we forget to mention that? We forgot to mention that.
Yeah, yeah. Dominate is really tough. I mean, but it's nice though with dominate though that the person that does attack that mastermind does get to choose who gets what heroes from that dominate.
Only for the person who actually hits him and
Yep,
gets to choose which hero. For the person who lost a hero, it's still painful. And if you're playing as Onslaught, you better be playing as a whole team.
yep, yep. So this is going to be our ranking for our top five and our top five favorites as well. So make sure you guys leave in the comments below what your guys' top fives are, because we're always interested to hear where we may have different opinions or to see what you guys think about it. So we also want to know what your guys' top five favorites are. So make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.